Welcome to the Inkle Expert Access Series. Our topic today is payment processes and workflows and how organizations can more efficiently manage all things payments. We're speaking to Hamed Abbasi, co-founder and CEO of Plooto, an organization focused on simplifying, streamlining, and automating payment processes and helping organizations optimize cash management. Hamed is an experienced senior executive with a 12-year history in both financial services and scalable gaming development solutions. Hamed, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So before we get into all the questions, can you just take a minute to give us a little more insight into your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to tell people this part of my journey because it tells you a lot about who I am as a person. But I immigrated with my parents to Canada when I was 14 years old. Didn't speak a single word of English. I was put right into high school, and I had to go through the high school journey and learn English at the same time. But I think that really prepared me as an entrepreneur to really push through and really try to get better at the things that I did on a daily basis and persevere. So I feel like so much of my journey as an entrepreneur was because of having to deal with that. I'll talk about a little bit about my background in terms of relevant to this conversation. But I started my career early in Bank of Montreal, dealt with, I was in personal and commercial banking, and that's where I was really exposed to small businesses and solo entrepreneur businesses and how they manage their finances from a bank perspective. But I left the bank to start a gaming company because I just thought it was more fun. It was along the lines of what I wanted to do with my life. When we started the gaming company, I was in charge of managing all the payables and receivables, just like many entrepreneurs of small businesses and a lot of small businesses. And we were fortunate enough to be able to scale that business, and we were acquired a number of years later, which gave us the opportunity to build Plooto. And Plooto was really built on a simple premise, which is how can we help other entrepreneurs don't go through the difficulties of managing cash flow the same way we had to in terms of managing payables and receivables and reconciling everything at the end of the month. That was something that just took a lot of effort, and we just wanted to solve that for other entrepreneurs. So that's a quick, 1 minute about me.
Yeah, that's a great story, a great origins. Okay, so let's talk Plooto. Tell me a bit about the business, about Plooto.
Yeah, so Plooto, our vision as a company is to enable the advancement of small businesses. If you look at the world we live in and how we live in our modern world, everything that you use or interact with, whether it's your computer, your laptop, or whether it's the car you drive or the content we watch, these are all things that were invented by entrepreneurs. And the names we know, like the Elon Musk and Steve Jobs of the world, those are the outliers. Most entrepreneurs, in fact, fail. Most small businesses fail. And that's just a reality. And the number one reason why small businesses fail is due to poor management of finances and their cash flow. And that makes a lot of sense because as an entrepreneur, you don't start a business to write checks all day. You don't start a business to match your receipts, to manage your expenses and your bills. And it's a process that most entrepreneurs are not good at and they don't enjoy, and they don't have money to be able to hire people who can do this job for them. So they end up taking on that responsibility, which I do not recommend. Something I went through, and it was not a fun experience. And because of that, they fail. So our thinking was, if we can solve the biggest pain point small businesses have, which is to help them manage their payables and receivables better, and eventually help them manage their cash flow better, we can not only build a product that millions of small businesses will absolutely love and enjoy and use every day, but we can also build our world into a better place because more entrepreneurs are going to survive and thrive, and they can continue to build amazing products and solve problems that really make our world a better place. So that's what basically Plooto does. It helps entrepreneurs manage their AP and AR and automate their AP and AR in a really simple, intuitive way at a cost they can afford. And then they can, focus on what they do really well.
Right. Awesome. And so for the people out there who aren't up to speed on the current trends in accounts payables and receivables, what does it mean to automate payments?
That's a great question. Because when I started Plooto with my co-founder, Sergey, who's our CTO, the number one question we would get is, how are you different than PayPal? Because to them, PayPal was like the payment standard, right? Or they would ask us questions like, how are you different than my bank, or Intrac e-money transfer, or any other term that or brand that they're familiar with. The reality is that getting paid or receiving payments on a business to business level is really complex. And the reason that it's complex is because there are many different layers and there's many different friction points that are involved throughout the entire process. So when you think about paying somebody from a personal perspective, right? Like, let's say you go to a dinner and you split a bill with somebody. It's really easy because I just look at the bill and I send you half of that amount. Whereas with business payments, it becomes a lot more complex because there's typically a bill or an invoice that first generates the reason to issue a payment or receive a payment. You have to enter this into an accounting ledger. You then have to connect your bank. So there's another layer of complexity with what type of software your bank uses and how advanced your bank's capabilities are. You then have your team because, typically it's you who starts with doing all the payables and receivables. But then, if you're fortunate enough like us to be able to grow the business, you then have, a bookkeeper, an accountant, a controller that is involved in that process. And then at the end of the month, you also have to reconcile all of your books. And that creates its own set of complexities. So when you talk about a payable it becomes really complex because you and your company have all of these processes and people involved. And on the other side of the transaction, it's the same level of complexities, right? That other company has the exact same, challenges as you do. So what Plooto does is that it takes that entire AP and AR process, whether it is to pull in the invoice or bill and extract the data and push it to the accounting software and create the bill or invoice for you, or whether it is to pull that invoice or bill from the accounting software, connect it to your bank, and then be able to send and receive the payment. And then also having your team, the controls, the audit trails, and then lastly, reconciliation back with the accounting software. What Plooto does is that it's a single end-to-end platform that does all of those for you. And it also allows you to scale your business because as your complexities increase, as you go through your entrepreneur's journey, you go from like 2 people in a basement to hopefully an IPO, your complexity of the business increases, and then Plooto can stay with you along the way, which is something that a lot of other platforms don't do. And we do all of that for $32 a month, which is, I feel like it's an amazing price. But
so my next question was, why did this whole payment process need transforming? Where were we and where are we? I mean, you've done a pretty good job of explaining how it all works today, but what was the need for this transformation to happen?
Well, it's a great question, and I think there's really it's a very complex question to ask because when I started Plooto, I didn't have a single gray hair, whereas like now, most of my hair, I don't know if you can tell, but like most of it is gray now, and that's because I finally understand why we are not modernizing our payments, because there's just so many layers to that question, right? Whether it is the complexity associated with AML and KYC, which are basically anti-money laundering, and know your customer, which is what the regulators are really concerned about. Then there's a technology component, which is, where the banks and businesses are involved. There are many layers to why payments haven't been modernized. And then it's also, there's a certain level of complacency that exists with banks and with our current way of doing things, because there's no reason to update this. It's just the process that everybody hates, and we don't see any reason to do it, because we don't get banks don't really make a lot of money on payment processing, and there's also a lot of risk and fraud associated with it. So that's why the investment doesn't get made at a lot of financial institutions when it comes to payment automation. But in terms of why we decided to solve this problem, I think as an entrepreneur, we think a little bit different. We think we can solve the problem and nobody else can solve the problem. So, there's an element of, ignorance is bliss. So you get into it, and it's just the problem really becomes your fascination, because it's almost like a game, and I come from the gaming background. So, you start putting all the pieces together and you just unlock new levels where they just become more and more fascinating and challenging for you. So I would say that's probably why we wanted to solve the problem, because it's a pain that we had when we were running our previous company. And it's a pain that every entrepreneur that I talked to also had. And as an entrepreneur, when you see a problem that big, you just want to go after it and you want to solve it.
Okay, Hamed, so tell us, what are the main benefits of payment automation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the first biggest measurable metric you would look at in your business is really around cost savings. Because if you think about all the components of you processing a payment, whether it's a payable or receiving a payment in terms of like a receivable, as I mentioned, there's many friction points that are involved. So the first thing you would see once you embrace a solution like Plooto is how much time you're saving, not only as a CEO, but also as a controller, as a bookkeeper, as an APAR person. You immediately see that a process that took they say on average it takes around 15 minutes to enter and process a single payable. So if you have 10, 20, 30 invoices, you have to multiply that by 15 minutes, and that is turned into seconds. So immediately you'll see that you're saving tons of time. After saving time, you realize a side effect, which is really the convenience factor. How easy it is to use a solution like Plooto. You no longer have to go to the branch and wait in line to send a wire transfer. You don't need to sign checks anymore. You can approve payments from anywhere around the world. You can use your iPhone or your Android device or your laptop to log in and see where payments are. You don't need to call the bank to be like, okay, my vendor hasn't been paid. Communication with your supplier, it's just the whole process just becomes so convenient. So I would say that those are the two key components that you're going to immediately see value in terms of like cost and as well as convenience. But then there's many other benefits to that. So for example, knowing where payments are and having the controls around who's approving a payment, who's sending payments out, how much is going out, how much is coming in. Those controls are really, really important. That allows you to scale as a business, because it no longer has to be a centralized function. It can actually like you don't need to go to the office every day to sign checks, for example. This can happen from anywhere. And then it also in terms, so I would call that under visibility, like in terms of like and control, like visibility and control becomes a really big benefit. So I would say those are the main three things that you would see. As your business grows, scale becomes an issue. And that's where Plooto can be really beneficial for you, because it can scale with your processes. And I'll give you an example. When early days when you're sending a payment, and I know that, obviously from personal experience, going from like one person or two people company to now, we have like 100 people at Plooto, the responsibilities really change. When we started the company, I would just write the checks and send them out. Whereas now there's many different people involved. So one person sets out the payment, one person has to approve it, one person, if the amount is large, above them has to approve it. So all of this is available to you. So it allows you to scale your business without having to continuously invest in this space. Those are the immediate benefits that you would see from embracing something like Plooto.
Perfect. And I think you've answered my next question about managing cash flow. So I'm going to skip to the one around fraud and security. So fraud and security breaches seem to be ubiquitous in today's society. So how does one help organizations avoid these issues and better secure their payment processes?
It's a fantastic question. And where I would, we have all types of customers. Like we have, Plooto now has around 9,000 customers, both in Canada and Plooto, that utilize the platform on a monthly basis. And we have customers that are 10 people. We have customers that are 300 people in their companies. And what Plooto does for a lot of businesses is that it actually establishes goals around their accounts payable and accounts receivables, which in a lot of businesses, it doesn't really exist. Like if you go to most small businesses, there's a checkbook in a drawer and anybody can take that and basically use it to pay themselves or commit fraud. Most fraud actually happens internally. It's not somebody sending you a phishing, email and then you put in your credentials. It's actually like somebody in your accounting team or somebody within the company that commits that fraud. So what Plooto does is that it allows you to set up really clear controls, whether it is on your banks. So you can set up controls on a bank account by bank account basis. You can set up controls on amounts, for example. So anything above 1,000 might require 2 or 3 approvers. And it basically secures everything around, we use really sophisticated security standards, industry standards to protect our customers. So if somebody logs in from a different location, we send you an alert. If you see a payment going out and you don't recognize it, we send you an alert. So you go from, which I've seen with most small businesses, not having any sort of control to actually setting up the controls that you need and then being able to scale with more people as you hire more people and you give them responsibilities, or even working with outside accounting or bookkeeping firms, which traditionally was not really possible, right? Like you would have to send a bookkeeper to the business to run their books, whereas now we enable a lot of our customers, which are accountants and bookkeepers, to have that control, being able to work from anywhere. So these are, again, these are some of like the benefits that you'll see. And in the background, we've also invested a significant amount of resources to make sure that we protect our customers, which a small business, again, does not have the resources to be able to protect themselves. So people say to me sometimes, I don't trust using an online solution, especially I would say some old school business owners. And the answer to that, is that you're actually more safe using a solution like Plooto than the checkbook that's in your drawer, because anybody can use that checkbook and write a payment out to themselves. And you might say, well, my signature matches. Newsflash, banks actually don't check those signatures, right? Like there's a giant machine that processes millions of checks and they don't have the time or resources to check every signature. So they just process the payment. So people think that, I'm protected because my signature is matched. It's actually not true. So whereas a solution like Plooto is looking at your IP, it's looking at where you're coming in, what device you're using. You haven't sent, these amounts and they look weird to us. What's happening here? Like all these things that you did not have, now you have it with a cloud-based solution like Plooto.
Right. So Plooto recently did a Series B raise of $20 million US. So how will you use these funds to continue to innovate and help organizations streamline their back office functions?
That's a great question. And one of the things that I wanted to say is that we raised our Series B at probably the most difficult period in the past, like I would say, 20 years that we've seen. It is not an easy environment to be raising capital, and also high risk capital, which is venture capital, which is what Plooto is backed with. However, we were able to successfully raise the round. And that's because we built a really solid business that is obsessed with delivering value to our customers. And that's what investors really saw in our company. And they became very excited about what we had built, and they wanted us to continue on that journey, which is why we were able to raise the 20 million in this environment. But what I would say is where we're taking that money and where we're going to be investing in this money is by doing what we have been doing, but just doing it better, and then delivering on our vision as a company, which is to enable small businesses, enable the advancement of small businesses. So what that translates to in terms of what our customers are asking for is that our customers are asking for us to really improve the payment processing experience, bring all the rails to the same platform. And we have most of the rails. In fact, Plooto was one of the first solutions in the market to offer payments directly to CRA, which is, some banks don't even have that. And we allow our customers to do transactions like that. But we really want to be a single solution for all the rails that our customers might need to send and receive a payment. So anything like credit cards, international payments, domestic payments, checks, government payments, we all want to bring it into our platform. The second area that we're investing in is around workflow automation, around everything that I've talked about, around being able to pull in invoices and bills, extracting the data, pushing it to the accounting software, and be able to just do that better and faster. So if you're 10-person company all the way to 500, we want to be able to serve you as a customer. And then the last part, which we're super excited about and where we're going to be making a lot of investments, is around insight and around our data. Our customers have a lot of data when they connect their accounts to Plooto. However, they are typically not getting any benefit out of it, right? You can in your accounting software, you can probably put a budget together, but that's really it, right? There isn't really any insights that you are developing from your payables and receivables and transactions. And what we want to do is that we have visibility into your payments, we have visibility into your suppliers and vendors, and we want to use this data and actually provide you really deep insights about your business and about cash flow. So if you, for example, have a vendor that is not, they haven't paid you on a regular basis based on the terms that you've agreed upon, we want to highlight that for you. We want to let you know that maybe, you need to send more alerts to this vendor, or if you're going to run out of cash because there's a mismatch between your payouts and the cash that is coming in, we want to make sure that you're aware of that. This traditionally is something that has been offered to very large companies because, it costs a lot of money to be able to hire people and provide this type of advisory service to businesses. But we feel that we could use technology to really democratize these insights and provide these these type of insights to our customers. So those are the three key areas: payment rails and having all the payment rails on a single platform, really expanding our workflow capabilities, and then providing you deep insights around your cash flow.
That's great. Sounds awesome. So I've got one last question for you. Given the current economic uncertainty, what advice would you have for small to mid-sized organizations struggling to stay afloat?
I would say, and this is, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying this just because I'm I'm involved with Plooto. What I would say is embracing a solution like Plooto is the first thing that you should do as a small business owner. Because first of all, if you don't know what's coming in and what's going out on a real time basis, you're going to expose yourself to making decisions that are going to put your company on the wrong path. So the first thing that you need to do as a business owner is to have visibility around what's going in and what's coming in. And doing it manually is going to simply take a lot of time away from you being able to solve the challenges that your customers have. How can you make your product and your company better? How can you get more customers? How can you deliver these services to your customers so you can stay afloat? So you should let a solution like Plooto take care of all of these necessities so you can really focus on what you do best as an entrepreneur, which is to solve problems creatively. So I would say that is my advice to you, because as without having a really strong grasp of your cash flow, you're going to have a very tough time navigating this economy and navigating the times that we're in. And it's really, really important that you get a strong grasp of that as soon as possible. I don't want to sound like very apocalyptic or anything like that, but the truth is that most small businesses don't pay a lot of attention to this area, and it is the number one reason why they fail.
Well, I think that's great advice. I mean, not to be cliche, but cash flow is king, and in this very uncertain economy, I think you're bang on. Hamed, thank you so much for your time today. I know that organizations struggling with cash management and payments will appreciate your insights on this topic, and especially in the economy that we're in today, where everyone is looking for ways to operate more efficiently. So thanks again, and all the best to you and the team at Plooto.
Absolutely. And the last thing I want to say is, for all the listeners out there, is to be working with professionals such as Encol, because if you don't have that expertise and you don't know where to start, I would say practices such as Encol are the best place for you to start, because they'll just save you so much time and so much money from having to make those mistakes and learn those the hard way. So avoid doing that and work with Encol.
Great advice. Thank you so much.